The Sleeping Bear Dunes stretched out like a vast, rolling desert along the shoreline of Lake Michigan. The early morning mist hovered low over the sands, giving the entire landscape an eerie, ghostly quality. The dunes, beautiful and haunting, seemed to shift and breathe as the wind rolled in from the lake. Karina moved silently through this otherworldly terrain, her figure barely visible in the growing light of dawn. Dressed in dark tactical gear, Karina had set out before first light, her mission clear: gather intelligence, locate Black Dawn operatives, and ensure her team's path remained safe. Her breath was steady as she maneuvered through the forest surrounding the dunes, heading toward a hidden motorcycle she'd prepped the night before. Every step was calculated. There was no room for mistakes. "Stay sharp, Karina," she muttered to herself as she double-checked her gear. Katana, concealed blades, silenced pistol, all in place. She mounted the bike, the engine purring softly as she navigated the dirt path leading away from the safe house. The cold wind whipped at her face, but her mind was clear, focused entirely on the task at hand. It wasn't long before she reached the outskirts of the Sleeping Bear Dunes. She parked the motorcycle in a secluded spot, dismounting without a sound, and continued on foot. The shifting sands beneath her feet made the terrain difficult, but the mist and early light provided her with excellent cover. Every step was deliberate, her senses heightened, searching for any sign of movement. The terrain was treacherous, the dunes rising and falling unpredictably. Soft sand threatened to betray her position, but Karina's training took over as she moved with precision, using her katana to gently push aside any dense foliage that might give her away. As she neared the heart of the dunes, she spotted it, a small encampment nestled in a shallow valley between two large sand hills. 3 figures moved around the camp, their dark, tactical clothing nearly blending into the early morning shadows. Karina's sharp eyes caught sight of the distinctive armbands. Black Dawn. Her heart quickened, but her focus never wavered. She crouched low, scanning the camp with careful precision. One of the operatives was setting up what appeared to be a surveillance device, while the others unpacked equipment from a large duffel bag. "Looks like they're getting ready to dig in," she whispered to herself. "They're setting up a perimeter." She knew she had to get closer. Black Dawn was here for the same reason they were, to find the artifact, and she needed to learn what they knew. Keeping low to the ground, Karina circled the camp, using the terrain to her advantage. As she neared, she could hear the muffled voices of the operatives. "Are you sure this is the right place?" one operative asked, his voice tinged with frustration. "The intel we got is pretty thin. Could just be another wild goose chase." "Doesn't matter," replied the second. "Orders are orders. We're supposed to watch this area and report any unusual activity. We're not the only ones looking for the artifacts. Those rogue agents are out there somewhere, and we can't let them get ahead of us." Karina narrowed her eyes, the mention of rogue agents confirming her suspicions. Black Dawn was aware of their movements, and they were actively hunting them. She knew she couldn't stay long. Getting caught now would jeopardize everything, but she needed more information. After a few more minutes of observation, she carefully retreated to a safe distance and pulled out her secure satellite phone, dialing Ashley's direct line at the safe house. "Ashley, it's Karina," she whispered. "I've got eyes on a Black Dawn camp near the center of the dunes. 3 operatives. They're setting up surveillance and they know we're in the area." "Any signs they've found anything?" Ashley's voice crackled softly through the secure line. "Not yet," Karina replied, glancing back toward the camp. "But they're definitely watching the area. I'm going to scout further, see if I can find out what they're really looking for. If we're lucky, they haven't located the ghost ship yet." "All right, but be careful. We can't afford any more losses." "I know. I'll check in soon." Karina out. She ended the call and moved deeper into the dunes, staying low and using the thick mist and natural landscape for cover. As she ventured further from the Black Dawn camp, something caught her eye, a faint, glowing trail in the sand, barely visible in the dim light. Intrigued, Karina followed the trail, moving cautiously, every muscle tense. The trail led her to a small hidden alcove between two dunes. Nestled inside was an old, weathered piece of parchment, pinned to a wooden stake. The paper looked ancient, worn by time and the elements. Carefully, Karina removed the parchment and examined it. The writing was faded, but still legible. A sailor's map marked with coordinates and a rough drawing of a ship. Strange symbols and cryptic notes lined the edges, all pointing to a location in the middle of Lake Michigan. "This is it," she whispered to herself, snapping a photo of the map with her phone. "This must be what they're looking for." Satisfied with her findings, Karina replaced the map exactly as she'd found it, ensuring it looked undisturbed. She retreated back the way she came, avoiding the Black Dawn camp and making her way to her motorcycle. As she mounted the bike and started the engine, she took one last look at the dunes. "Let's hope this gives us the edge we need," she thought, before speeding off back to the safe house. When Karina arrived back at the safe house, Alex and Ashley were waiting for her, having finished their own preparations. She quickly relayed everything she had seen and heard, including the map and the Black Dawn operatives' activities. Ashley studied the photo of the map, her expression growing more serious. "You were right. This map definitely points to the ghost ship, and if Black Dawn's after it, we'll need to move fast." "We need to get there first," Alex said, her eyes locked on the map. "If we can find the artifact before they do, we might be able to throw them off our trail for a while." Karina placed her katana on the table, leaning in. "So, what's the plan? How do we get to the coordinates without tipping off Black Dawn?" Ashley's lips curled into a determined smile. "We go by boat, under cover of night. With any luck, we'll be on the ghost ship before they even know we're there. Let's get ready to move." The team mobilized quickly, finalizing their gear and strategy. Karina's reconnaissance had given them a crucial advantage, but they all knew how fast the tides could turn. Every second counted now. As they prepared to embark on the next phase of their mission, the weight of what lay ahead settled over them. But with new intel in hand and a clear objective, they were more determined than ever to stay one step ahead of Black Dawn. In the safe house nestled deep in the woods of Traverse City, Michigan, the atmosphere was tense but focused. The team gathered around the table, their eyes fixed on the map before them. The ghost ship's coordinates lay tantalizingly close, but Karina's earlier encounter with Black Dawn operatives had complicated their mission. Every decision from here on had to be precise. Karina, her expression serious and calculating, broke the silence. "Before we head out to find the ghost ship, we need to deal with those Black Dawn operatives at the dunes. If they've set up surveillance, they'll spot us the moment we head out onto the lake. We can't afford to lead them to the artifact or get caught in a firefight." Alex, leaning against the table with her arms crossed, nodded in agreement. "She's right. If they see us, we're done. We'd have Black Dawn breathing down our necks before we even reach the ship. Worse, they could call for backup. This could go sideways fast." Ashley, the strategist, was silent for a moment, her mind working through the risks and benefits. She knew that engaging Black Dawn operatives could tip off the larger network, but leaving them unchecked could ruin their entire operation. After a few moments, she exhaled and nodded decisively. "Karina's right. We can't leave them watching our every move. If they report back, we'll lose any chance of surprise. But we need to handle this quietly, efficiently. No unnecessary risks." Karina, always pragmatic, was ready. "I'll handle it. I know their positions, and I can move in quickly. If I strike fast and hard, I can take them out before they even realize what's happening." Alex shot her a concerned glance. "You sure about this? These aren't just your average mercenaries. They're trained, like us. It's dangerous to go in alone." Karina smirked, the hint of confidence returning to her eyes. "I've taken down worse. Besides, you and Ashley need to focus on prepping the boat and mapping out the course to the ship. The sooner we deal with this, the sooner we can get the artifact." Ashley, trusting Karina's judgment and skill, nodded. All right, Karina. You take care of the operatives. Alex and I will get everything ready. Once the threat is neutralized, meet us at the dock and we'll head for the lake. Karina gave a curt nod and began gathering her gear. I'll be in and out. You won't even know I'm gone. As Karina prepared to leave, Alex and Ashley turned their attention to their next phase, gearing up for the mission. They gathered their stealth equipment, infrared goggles, and navigational tools for the lake. Everything had to be meticulously planned. If they were going to get to the artifact before Black Dawn, they couldn't afford any delays. Karina slipped out of the safe house and mounted her motorcycle, the engine purring softly beneath her. As she sped off toward the dunes, the weight of the mission faded, replaced by the calm clarity that came with action. This was where she excelled, moving unseen, striking fast, and eliminating threats before they could become a problem. The Sleeping Bear Dunes loomed ahead, now shrouded in the mist of the late afternoon. The fog rolling in from Lake Michigan created a ghostly haze that clung to the sand and trees, making the landscape both beautiful and foreboding. Parking her motorcycle at a safe distance, Karina continued on foot, moving with practiced stealth through the underbrush. The Black Dawn operatives had no idea she was closing in. From her vantage point on a ridge, she saw them. 3 figures still in their positions, oblivious to her presence. One operative was adjusting surveillance equipment, another was patrolling the perimeter, and the third appeared to be on a radio, likely checking in with their network. Karina's heart beat steadily as she prepared herself. She knew what needed to be done. Moving in silently, she came up behind the first operative. With one swift motion, her katana cut through the air, incapacitating him before he could react. She caught his body, lowering him gently to the ground to avoid any noise. 1 down, 2 to go, she whispered to herself. The second operative was moving closer to the camp's edge, scanning the surroundings. Karina waited for the perfect moment before lunging forward, taking him down with a precise strike to the neck. He crumpled silently, and she dragged him into the shadows, keeping his body hidden. As she approached the third and final operative, she heard his low voice over the radio. Yeah, we're set up here. Nothing to report yet, but we're watching. You think those rogue agents are going to show? Karina moved swiftly. Before he could finish his sentence, she was upon him, disarming him with a swift motion and knocking him unconscious with a well-placed blow. The threat was neutralized. Quickly, she searched the camp, making sure there were no hidden traps or devices left behind. She found the radio and disabled it, ensuring no communication with other Black Dawn operatives. With the area secured, she pulled out her satellite phone and contacted Ashley. This is Karina. The operatives are neutralized. Area's clear, she reported in a low voice. Great work, Karina, Ashley replied over the phone. We're ready on our end. See you at the dock. With her task complete, Karina made her way back to the motorcycle, feeling a sense of satisfaction at having neutralized the threat. As she sped back through the woods, her mind shifted to the next phase. They had bought themselves some time, but the real mission, the artifact, was still ahead. Back at the safe house, Ashley and Alex were finalizing preparations when Karina arrived. She quickly relayed the details of her recon, confirming that the Black Dawn threat had been dealt with. Ashley looked at the map spread out on the table, her expression serious but resolute. All right. With the operatives out of the way, we move fast. We'll head out by boat under cover of night. If we're lucky, we'll be on the ghost ship and have the artifact before Black Dawn even knows we're there. Alex nodded, her eyes sharp and determined. We have to get that artifact before they do. It's our only shot. Karina set her katana on the table and leaned in. So, what's the plan? How do we get to the coordinates without alerting anyone? Ashley smiled slightly, a glint of determination in her eyes. We go in silent. No one sees us coming. Let's gear up. We've got a mission to finish. With the plan in place and Karina's successful recon giving them an edge, the team mobilized swiftly. As they prepared for the next phase, the gravity of their mission hung over them, but their resolve was stronger than ever. They had cleared the first obstacle, but they all knew that the real challenge was just beginning. The cold night air hung heavily over Lake Michigan, its vast, dark waters stretching out like an endless expanse. Only the faint glow of the moon pierced the mist, casting a silver sheen across the surface. The gentle lapping of waves against the motorboat was the only sound breaking the eerie silence as the team made their way toward the ghost ship's coordinates. With the Black Dawn operatives neutralized and the area secure, Karina arrived at the secluded dock just as Alex and Ashley finished loading the last of their gear onto the small, unmarked boat. It was a vessel equipped for stealth, armed with infrared goggles, navigational tools, and essential weapons. Every detail had been planned with precision, but the air between them was tense. Everyone knew that what lay ahead was a dangerous unknown. Alex handed Karina a pair of infrared goggles as she stepped aboard. "Good work back there. We've got a clear path to the coordinates now." Karina slipped the goggles on, checking her katana strapped to her back. "Let's hope it stays that way. We're not exactly out of the woods yet." Ashley started the engine, the boat purring softly as they glided away from the dock. She kept the speed low, minimizing the noise. "You know the plan. We get to the coordinates, locate the ghost ship, retrieve the artifact, and get out. Stay sharp. We don't know what's waiting for us out there." As they moved further from the shore, the trio remained alert, eyes scanning the dark water for any signs of danger. The mist was thickening, wrapping around the boat like a veil, muting the world around them. The moon's reflection on the water was dim, and the air felt colder the further they ventured into the lake. Alex sat at the helm, navigating with a handheld GPS. "We're halfway there. So far, no signs of trouble." Karina stood at the bow, her gaze piercing the darkness. "Let's keep it that way. I don't want any surprises." The mist continued to thicken, the once still water becoming an ominous, shifting landscape of shadows and reflections. The suffocating silence was only broken by the soft hum of the boat's engine and the occasional splash of water against the hull. The air felt heavy, charged with a supernatural energy. Suddenly, the boat's radar pinged. A large object was up ahead, unmoving. Ashley immediately slowed the engine, her eyes narrowing as she peered into the thick fog. "That's not on the map. Whatever it is, it's big." Alex switched to infrared, scanning the area. "I see something. Looks like a ship, but the fog's messing with visibility." Karina, always cautious, drew her katana slightly from its sheath. "Could be the ghost ship. Could be something else. Either way, we need to approach carefully." As they drifted closer, the mist parted just enough to reveal the looming outline of a massive ancient vessel. The ship's tattered sails hung limply, its weathered hull bearing the scars of centuries at sea. Faintly etched on the side of the ship was the name The Celeste, barely legible through the layers of grime. Ashley's voice was barely a whisper. "The lost ship of the Great Lakes. It's real." They brought the motorboat alongside the decrepit vessel, securing it to the ship's side with a rope. One by one they climbed aboard, each feeling a chill run down their spine as their boots touched the rotting wood of the deck. The air here was colder, more oppressive, as if the ship itself resented their presence. Alex swept her flashlight across the deck, keeping the beam low. "This place feels like it's stuck in time. It's wrong." Karina's senses were on high alert, every step measured. "Focus. If the legends are right, the artifact's below deck. Let's move." The creaking of the ancient ship echoed around them as they carefully navigated the decaying wood and broken beams. Every step felt like an intrusion into something long forgotten. As they descended the narrow staircase into the lower decks, the temperature plummeted further, the air thick with the stench of mildew and decay. Ashley led the way, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. "Remember, The artifact is cursed. Watch for traps. We don't know what kind of defenses are down here. Alex, her pistol drawn, tried to lighten the mood. Just another day at the office, right? At the bottom of the stairs, they were greeted by a faint, ghostly glow coming from a nearby room. The flickering light cast long, eerie shadows that danced across the walls. The team exchanged wary glances before approaching the source, weapons ready. Inside the small, dimly lit room was an old wooden chest, partially open. The glow came from within, a pulsing, otherworldly light that seemed to sync with their heartbeats. Ashley stepped forward, her voice barely audible. That's it, the artifact. Karina, ever cautious, held her katana at the ready. Wait, something's wrong. Look around. The room was thick with tension as they realized they were not alone. Slowly, faint figures began to materialize in the shadows, ghostly sailors, their gaunt faces and glowing blue eyes staring at the intruders. Their presence was silent, but their intent was clear. Alex's voice was a whisper. I guess the curse is real. Any bright ideas? Before they could react, one of the spectral figures stepped forward. A captain, judging by his tattered uniform and commanding posture. He raised a ghostly hand, pointing at Ashley. His voice was cold and hollow. You seek the cursed treasure of the Celeste. None who touch it leave this place alive. Ashley, trying to keep her voice steady, responded, We're not here to take it for ourselves. We're here to protect it. If it falls into the wrong hands, the living will suffer. The captain's expression did not change. His voice, icy and final, cut through the air. The artifact belongs to the dead. Those who seek it must join us in eternal servitude. Karina stepped forward, katana raised. We don't have time for this. Stand down, or we'll make you. The ghostly sailors began to close in, their forms becoming more solid and menacing. The air grew colder, and a mournful wail echoed through the ship, as if the very vessel was protesting their presence. Ashley raised her flashlight, the beam cutting through the dark mist. Alex, cover me! Karina, keep them back! Alex fired warning shots into the air, the sound momentarily halting the ghost's advance. Karina moved swiftly, her katana slicing through the nearest ghost. Though the blade passed through the apparition, the spirit recoiled in pain, its form flickering and fading. They're vulnerable to physical attacks, Karina muttered. We can keep them at bay. Seizing the moment, Ashley dashed toward the chest. She carefully lifted the artifact, a small, ornate compass. Its needle spun wildly, and its surface glowed with the same ghostly light that filled the room. Alex, still firing intermittently to keep the spirits at a distance, shouted, Got it! Ashley nodded, securing the compass in a protective case. Got it, let's move! With the artifact in hand, they rushed back up the stairs, the ghostly sailors close behind. The ship groaned around them, the walls warping and shifting as if trying to trap them. The mist grew thicker, choking the air and making it harder to breathe. Karina slashed at the ghosts, her movements fluid and precise. Keep moving! Don't let them corner us! Ashley led the way, her flashlight carving a path through the fog. We're almost there. As they reached the deck, the ghosts abruptly stopped, retreating into the shadows. The team wasted no time clambering back down to their motorboat and untying the rope. Alex started the engine, and they sped away from the Celeste, the ghost ship vanishing into the mist as if it had never existed. Once they were a safe distance away, the trio took a moment to catch their breath. Their hearts still pounded, adrenaline coursing through their veins. Ashley examined the compass in the pale moonlight. We got it, and we're still breathing. I'd call that a win. Karina sheathed her katana, nodding. But this thing's dangerous. Cursed. We need to figure out what to do with it, fast. Alex glanced back at the fading silhouette of the Celeste. Something tells me this is just the beginning. We've got the artifact, but Black Dawn won't be far behind. The boat sliced through the dark water as they sped back toward the shore, the wind whipping against their faces. The team had won a significant battle tonight, but they knew the war was far from over. The team's motorboat drifted silently toward the dock near the safe house, the night's tension still thick in the air. The boat cut through the dark waters of Lake Michigan, its faint hum barely audible above the gentle lapping of waves. The cursed compass they had retrieved from the Celeste weighed heavily in their minds, its malevolent energy palpable even from within its protective case. Once the boat was secured, Alex, Karina, and Ashley disembarked swiftly, moving in near silence through the dense woods. They stayed close to the shadows, avoiding open ground, their senses heightened after the ghostly encounter on the lake. The air was colder now, and the woods seemed to hold its breath as they approached the cabin. Karina led the way, her katana drawn and ready. She moved with fluid precision, opening the door to the safe house and stepping inside without a sound. Alex and Ashley followed closely behind, their weapons drawn, scanning every corner for signs of intrusion. The cabin looked as they had left it, but they weren't taking any chances. After a thorough sweep of the small house, the tension finally eased. They confirmed they were alone. Ashley locked the door behind them and turned to the others. "All right, looks like we're safe for now. Let's get the artifact secured and figure out what comes next." Alex placed the cursed compass on the table and the team gathered around, eyes fixed on the eerie object. The needle spun erratically, as if sensing something unseen. A faint glow emanated from the compass's surface, casting an unnatural light in the dimly lit room. The temperature seemed to drop around it, and an oppressive silence filled the space. Karina narrowed her eyes at the object, her voice low. "This thing, it doesn't belong in our world. We need to contain it before it causes more problems." Ashley moved quickly, retrieving a lead-lined box from one of the secure storage compartments built into the cabin. "Agreed. We don't know the full extent of its curse, and we're not about to find out." With care, Ashley placed the compass inside the box and sealed it shut. The ghostly light dimmed, and the room's temperature returned to normal. Alex let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "That should keep it from doing whatever it does," Alex said, though her voice betrayed her lingering unease. Ashley nodded, placing the box on a reinforced shelf hidden behind a false wall. "It'll have to do for now, but we can't keep collecting cursed artifacts. Sooner or later, we won't be able to control them. We need a long-term plan." They regrouped around the table, exhaustion settling in but their minds still sharp. The events of the night had drained them, but they had no time to rest. Black Dawn was likely still hunting them, and the artifacts were too dangerous to leave unguarded. Ashley leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. 2 artifacts down, but there are still more out there. We have no idea how far ahead, or behind, Black Dawn is. Alex crossed her arms, leaning against the table. "And we're running thin on resources. We can't keep doing this alone. We need information, supplies, and more people on our side." Karina's face was serious as she sat across from Ashley. "We need Gunnar. He needs to know what we've found and what we're up against. If anyone can help us figure out the next steps, it's him." Ashley nodded, knowing Karina was right. "We've been on our own for too long. We need his guidance." She stood and moved toward the secure satellite phone in the back room, dialing Gunnar's private line, a direct connection to him wherever he was off-world. The phone rang, but no one picked up. Ashley's heart sank slightly as Gunnar's voice came through the static-laden line. "Gunnar, over the phone. This is Gunnar. Leave a message." Ashley closed her eyes for a moment, then responded. "Gunnar, it's Ashley. We've got a situation. We managed to retrieve one of the artifacts, but it's cursed. Black Dawn's on our tail, and we need guidance. Get back to us when you can." She hung up the phone and returned to the main room, her expression grim. "No response," Ashley said, her voice tight. "Gunnar's still off-world. I left a message, but for now we're on our own. We need to keep the artifacts hidden, and no one touches them unless it's absolutely necessary." Alex's eyes flickered with understanding as she nodded. So we keep doing what we've been doing. Find the artifacts, stay one step ahead of Black Dawn, and hope Gunnar gets back in time. Karina's face remained serious, her jaw tight. It's going to get harder. The more artifacts we find, the more desperate Black Dawn will become. They'll stop at nothing to get their hands on these things. Ashley returned to the table, pulling out the map and notes they had collected from Madame Laveau. Then we can't waste time. We need to stay ahead of them. The only advantage we have is speed. For the next few hours, the team studied the map, cross-referencing locations and notes to identify where the next artifact might be. Each moment was a reminder of how close they were to danger, yet they pressed on, driven by the gravity of their mission. Alex pointed to a spot on the map, her eyes narrowing. Here, near a small town in Montana, there's a place called the Cave of Shadows. It's mentioned in some of the older notes we found. Could be our next target. Ashley marked the location, already planning the next move. We'll need to gather intel on the area, figure out what we're up against. Karina stood and stretched her legs. I'll check our gear, make sure we're ready. We might have to leave fast if Black Dawn's closer than we think. As they continued finalizing their plan, the weight of the mission pressed down on them. Exhausted, outnumbered, and with cursed artifacts in their possession, they knew the road ahead was treacherous. Yet, their resolve only grew stronger. The first rays of dawn began to filter through the trees outside the cabin, casting pale light across the map on the table. They knew they were fighting for more than just survival. They were fighting to keep a dangerous ancient power from falling into the wrong hands. And as they prepared for the next leg of their journey, they were ready for whatever came next.